and Pepper finds the trap that the sorcerers used to block the mana and burns it with her breath throughout the forest. Pepper manages to create a trail of fire to guide anyone willing to find the students. Russell. She explains the plan to the honor student of the Lance Tower, who is impressed by her brilliance and wonders how many steps ahead he was thinking. As she walks away, Russell notices that his ring is still emitting lightning. He looks at the cloudy ring on his fingers and realizes he is using much more mana than expected. As the honor student of the Lance Tower passes by the unconscious bodies, the sorcerer's body begins to move. With his face partially burned, he starts to chant for a spirit and declares that his devotion is to it. While dying, he proclaims that he dedicates his life, his longevity, and even this death. Russell and the honor student of the Lance Tower hear him speak and quickly turn to investigate the matter. The sorcerer invokes a terrible spell that combines his body with all the bodies of the undead army to summon something called a giant skeleton. Soon after, a massive undead skeleton emerges, and it seems that he is here for revenge. Russell shrinks back with the radiant aura and realizes that the monster is something that far exceeds the fifth circle. The honor student of the Lance Tower urges the others to run quickly into the forest because the new enemy is quite formidable. The honor student of the Yellow Tower is the first to flee. Before leaving, he spots the bag with the green mana stones and considers taking it. The student of the Lance Tower notices that Russell is not running and questions why he is staying to fight. Russell explains that the giant monster is targeting him. He says he is the only one who can buy time until the judges arrive. Meanwhile, Olsen and Professor Hilbert run to the training field. The girl reasons that Russell must be out of mana by now and wonders what he plans to do. The monster quickly raises its claws and crushes the spot where Russell is. Russell teleports away because the attack cannot be blocked with a shield. He prepares his fire spear and concludes that even a strike could be quite dangerous. He decides to attack quickly with the fire spear. The spear makes a deep cut in the monster, but it seems far from dying. Russell observes that the attack wounded the monster, but realizes it will be more difficult than he thought. He notices that the flesh begins to regenerate, and wonders if it also has the ability to regenerate while he thinks. The monster attacks him with its tail but misses. The monster quickly launches another attack right in front of his face. He manages to dodge it, but the monster reacts before he can regain his balance. He realizes he is in trouble and exclaims out of nowhere. An ice spell hits the tail and deflects the attack, surprising Russell, who was about to be impaled. Nearby, the honor student of the Lance Tower loudly reminds Russell that he saved her life, so she cannot just leave him behind. The monster is shocked by the intruder and looks at her. Meanwhile, the other students run to a safe place. She remembers what he said, that this is a guardian's mission. Meanwhile, the honor student of the White Tower and some others turn around when they hear the monster roaring. The student of the Yellow Tower asks why they are coming back and calls them crazy. He insists it is not his problem if something happens to them. Meanwhile, the young sorcerer wakes up, revealing that he did not die after all. He notices the monster and wonders if it could be a sacrifice spell cast by his superior. He laughs at Russell and mocks that it serves him right. Meanwhile, the other students return to join Russell in the fight. The honor student of the White Tower apologizes for being late, but Russell is surprised they came back. He looks at them in confusion. Eventually, he smiles, happy to have their support. He summons his flaming spear and enthusiastically says he won't stop them since they want to fight together. However, he instructs them to follow his lead if they want to survive and win this fight. Meanwhile, the honor student of the Lance Tower continues to fight the monster. Russell announces to the others that he will create an opening with his flaming spear. Then they need to give it their all. He throws his spear once more and aims directly at the monster's face. When the spear is about to hit its target, he signals for the others to fire their attacks. The combined attack results in a massive explosion. Half of the monster's face is torn off, but it is still standing. Russell tells them to go once more, but his hands are now trembling. He immediately tries to summon another flaming spear while the teachers find the route that Pepper created. Russell declares that everyone has joined him because it is a guardian's mission. Then they need to go further. He tells himself that he must protect them, so he generates another flaming spear and adjusts it for full output. His eyes become reptilian, signaling that he is in dragon mode. He fires the spear at the monster with maximum power while the other students launch their attacks. The great fire of the spear flies through the air and hits, again, the face of the monster. Shortly after, Vermilion approaches the enormous monster. He is shocked to see the students fighting against a huge skeleton. He wonders what these weaklings are trying to accomplish together, and comments that they should have simply fled. Vermilion Olsen believes that being weak is a weakness for him. If one person falls, All the others fall with her. Meanwhile, he watches Russell generating his fire spear at maximum power and directing it at the monster. While waiting to see what will happen, he notices the spear tearing through the monster at that moment. Vermilion realizes that if one of those weaklings stands up, they all stand up. He observes as the combined effort causes a great explosion that tears the monster's head off. Suddenly, the head of the senior sorcerer is exposed, making it clear that he is the one controlling it. He shouts that it is not over yet, and the monster begins to heal again. Vermilion quickly takes command and launches himself at the monster. He uses a spell called Overheat, channeling a large amount of energy into his hand. The sorcerer is stunned to see Vermilion advancing towards him. Vermilion calls him a wicked being and orders him to disappear. The attack is so intense that it nearly blinds the students. The monster is completely vaporized by the attack. Russell smiles at Vermilion and comments that he should have arrived faster if he was going to intervene. He suddenly faints from mana exhaustion. Professor Rupert catches him and praises his good work. Vermilion smiles at him and seems impressed. The screen shows that he has earned the approval of the last judge and has been awarded an intermediate stone. Sometime later, Russell wakes up in another place. He gets up and finds Professor Hilbert by his side. He immediately asks if the other candidates are safe. The professor assures him that they are, thanks to him. Russell says that this is a relief, and the professor agrees, adding that they could all be dead if it weren't for him. Russell laughs and says he had some help. The professor promptly asks if he is curious about the test results. Russell suddenly remembers that they had a test and urges him to reveal the result. The professor explains that the judges had many concerns, especially because of the attack caused by the Heredes. Due to the attack, the third test became irrelevant, as teamwork proved to be more important than competition. Meanwhile, the student from the Yellow Tower ran back with all the mana stones and did not stay to fight. The professor reveals that keeping this in mind, the judges reached a conclusion. They decided that in this selection test, the person who deserved the highest score was Russell. Russell is shocked to hear the news that he scored the highest. He thanks the professor, happy to finally be able to graduate from the academy. The professor informs him that an investigation has been initiated into the Heredes to uncover the mentor behind the attack. He assures Russell that they will soon get to the root of the problem. Russell informs Professor Rupert that there was one more hero in the field. The professor is surprised to hear this because they had only found one. Apparently, the injured sorcerer escaped amidst the chaos. Upon escaping, he vows to make Russell pay for this humiliation. Vermilion, who is standing nearby, comments that it seems they lost the other sorcerer. Vermilion Sr. intervenes and asks to speak with Russell for a while. Professor Rupert protests, saying that Russell needs rest. Russell notices the attention and reassures him, saying that it is okay. Later, Vermilion and Russell leave. Vermilion comments that Russell must have felt dragged down while fighting against the Heredes. He says this because he assumes that Russell had to fight alongside weak people. He explains that he still believes that being weak is a weakness, and that perspective has not changed. Russell agrees but states that the weak exist so that the strong can become stronger and protect them because of that. The weak always strive to improve, inspired by the strong who protect them, so no one gets left behind, and everyone takes a step forward. Vermilion listens in silence. He suddenly smiles and comments that it was not a bad answer. He throws a white bag to Russell and encourages him to open it. Russell is shocked and wonders what is inside. He suddenly smiles and comments that it wasn't a bad answer. He throws a white bag to Russell and encourages him to open it. Russell is shocked and wonders what is inside. He unwraps and finds a fabric that he immediately recognizes as a red flaming tower cloak, smirking to the side and warning him not to rush yet. He explains that if Russell wants to join the flame tower, there is still one more test. Russell is confused because the selection test has ended. The veteran explains that it is a kind of ancient tradition they go through before they can join. Red suddenly creates a circle around him, declaring that the test is for Russell to force him out of the circle, using any magic he wants. He states that if Russell cannot move him, there will be an appropriate price. Russell responds with a warning, not to regret giving him the opportunity to attack, and pulls a mana stone from his compartment before consuming it, smiling mischievously and reiterating that he can use any magic. Russell smiles as he formulates his plan. Shortly after, Professor Hilbert notices something that surprises him. The veteran Vermilion tries to prepare as he is hit by one of Russell's lightning bolts, one of his legs crossing the circle. He smiles, remembering that he is covered by armor that is no less than a level 5 circle. But strangely, he is still pushed back by the attack from this boy. Professor Hubert rushes to the scene and asks his brother, Mr. Allison, what he is doing. He complains that he would corner the young boy when he is still recovering. Red does not back down and says this is the long-standing tradition of his flame tower. Hubert retorts that his behavior is something he would expect from a new disciple. Vermilion gets angry and asks what he means by that, and says that the tradition is to instill discipline in Russell before he joins them. Hubert angrily counters that he thinks the pillars of the academy will fall if he instills more discipline in the boy. Hubert apologizes to Russell on behalf of Senior Vermilion, but Russell laughs and says it's all right. Vermilion ignores Hilbert's comment and tells Russell that he is the only person who passed this test since they started conducting them. It seems that Russell used a specially created magic he invented using the power of his magic ring, just like the blazing spear. At the same time, to Vermilion's surprise, he summoned a spirit to add to the attack. Red tells him that he is sincerely surprised, and Hilbert is shocked to learn that Russell summoned a spirit. Russell summons Pepper and introduces him to them. The two men look at the spirit and find him cute. Sometime later at the academy graduation, Russell reads his speech as the speaker. He wishes all the best to the other students as they continue their journey of life. Everyone applauds after he finishes his speech. Sometime later, Professor Rupert praises his speech, and Russell thanks Professor Rupert, reminding him that he is no longer a student, so he should call him senior brother now. Ransel affirms this and calls him older brother. Brother Rupert smiles and asks if he has a place to stay in the capital. Ransel informs him that he is thinking of getting a small room on the outskirts of the capital. Rupert tells him not to do that, but to stay at his house since he cannot go home until his contract with the academy ends. Ransel excitedly asks if that is all right, and the professor says, yes. Brother Hubert said he bought the master's house, and it's funny that he hasn't used it yet. Sometime later, Russell moves into the house. The system congratulates him on his graduation and gives him an unknown reward and a high-quality mana stone. For the first time, the system checks the unknown reward and finds a map. The system notifies him to find the marked location on the map and complete the connection mission. Russell smiles because he recognizes the place. It is a forbidden island where humans cannot step foot, called Kolil Island, because it is infested with magical beasts and is a very dangerous place, where you need to be at least a sixth circle. Our boy reasons that he is very curious about what this opportunity requires of him. He recalls that the power of the king's trumpet was placed in him. He wonders if all of this is just to make him stronger, or if there is a greater mission for which he needs to strengthen himself. He sits down to rest and realizes that he still does not know. Regardless, he concludes that he needs to get stronger, because there is much to protect anyway. Sometime later, in a carriage, Vermilion asks Russell if it is his first time going to the capital. Russell says no, because he has been there before. Vermilion remembers that he is from the Raymond family, so he should know. Russell suddenly tells senior brother Vermilion that he has something to ask him. He inquires about the task that Professor Hilbert received, and if it is something related to the heirs. Vermilion just stares at him and listens. Our boy says that if that is not the case, there is no way the professor could have returned. When they were attacked, Vermilion smiles and comments that he is perceptive. He confirms his suspicions and says that Hilbert's mission is to track the Society of Heirs. He says he is not sure if it is right to call them a society. Russell confesses, excitedly, that he would like to help with this mission too. Vermilion is shocked by his statement and asks if he is serious. He observes the boy closely and realizes that he does not seem to be bluffing. He smiles and tells Russell that he is a man, so it is okay to dream big. He promises to inform the master about his interest, and Russell thanks him. Vermilion says he will only do this if Russell can learn the magic he will teach before they reach the capital. Russell laughs when he realizes that his brother Vermilion really enjoys making bets. He says that the magic is called Overheat. He smiles and says it is a spell that kills with a single strike. He activates the magic and says it is a death spell, with a single blow made by concentrating mana at one point. Although it is temporary, he says you can think of it as pulling your mana and shooting it like a slingshot. He smiles and asks Russell if he can do that. Later, the two get down from the carriage to see if Russell can use Overheat. Russell slows down and tries to concentrate all his mana in one palm. Later, he attempts to launch an attack at a stone. After the smoke clears, the stone reveals a huge hole, and it seems like a successful test. Vermilion smiles and says to himself that this was beyond his expectations. He is surprised that Russell used Overheat with his own origin magic, which is fire. He wonders if he has ever seen someone so talented before. Suddenly, Russell's hand starts to tremble. Vermilion informs him that Overheat uses momentary focus, so he must be careful as he will not be able to attack immediately after using it. Russell observes this and says that it is risky to use it against a strong opponent. Vermilion smiles and informs him that it is not always like that. He says that the best defense is the greatest attack. When they arrive at the capital, Vermilion remembers what he said about not knowing when a stronger person will appear. He said that, however, the strong tend to underestimate the weak, and there is always a moment when they let their guard down. Meanwhile, a man named Alan tries to help an older man down from a high place. Russell sees the man and recognizes him. Vermilion continues his explanation and tells him that if he is in such a situation, the trick up his sleeve will decide who wins the fight. Later, Russell meets with the area master. He thanks her for her help that got him to this position. She just smiles and congratulates him for joining the Flame Tower. She tells him that his arrival coincides with the visit of the master of the Lance Tower, Remy, and Melville, who had arrived with the young mage from the Lance Tower, Alan Page. Melville speaks and says that he was wondering why Darien would choose today of all days to meet him. He says he now realizes it was to brag about one disciple she managed to get in her last years, and Darien says he is right. She says that Russell is a hero who defeated a hero while still young. Russell looks at Alan again and remembers that in his past life, he earned the title of youngest of the Sixth Circle in just a few years. He recognizes him as a strange genius and recalls that he was the mage who saved his life. Melville jokes with Darien and says that it is normal for him to brag. He says that if she looks objectively, Alan's skills are better. Vermilion gets tired of them arguing again. Darien asks Melville if he forgot that his youngest disciple is younger, and Melville says he knows. The two old men provoke each other in a discussion. Meanwhile, Alan suddenly puts his hand on Melville's shoulder and says that their master is not usually like this, but he shows his childish side when he meets Darien. The master Melville exclaims and calls Alan a rascal for saying such nonsense, but Alan jokes that he must miss his youth. Alan reminds them that they have to visit the royal palace, and Master Melville agrees. Alan approaches Russell and apologizes for his master's behavior. At their first meeting, Russell laughs and says it is all right. Our boy says that, however, he was disappointed because he would have liked to show him his magic. Vermilion is shocked by Russell's words and assumes that the boy must be convinced. Melville laughs and says that Russell is quite bold. He wonders where this confidence comes from and fills the room with his aura. Russell is shocked to see the aura of the Master of the Lance Tower and says it feels like being in an ocean. Master Melville laughs at Russell's comment. On their first meeting, Russell laughs and says, "It's all right." Our boy says that, however, he was disappointed because he wanted to show him his magic. Redhead is shocked by Russell's words and assumes that the boy must be convinced. Melville laughs and says that Russell is quite bold. He wonders where this confidence comes from and fills the room with his aura. Russell is shocked to see the aura of the Spear Tower Master and says it feels like being in an ocean. Master Melville laughs at Russell's comment and says he didn't know anything could surprise him at his advanced age. As he gets up to leave, he asks Daria to bet with him, which surprises her. He tells her that in 5 years, if her disciple completely catches up to his, he will give her one of his mythical relics. Daria seems satisfied and exclaims. Russell hears him and remembers that mythical relics are artifacts from the era of myths. They are relics that existed in the forgotten age of myths, and from what he heard, even the weakest relics possess mana close to the 7th circle. Daria says he should change it to 3 years, and Melvilo is shocked. She proposes that if her disciple does not catch up to his in 3 years, then she will give up her own mythical relic. Master Melvilo laughs and reminds her that she cannot back down now. She just smiles, and informs him to prepare his artifact in advance. Melvilo finally leaves and tells Alan to follow him. Alan bows, respectfully, and informs the Flame Master that they will withdraw, while Melvilo continues laughing. As they leave, Alan asks his master if everything is all right. He bets a mythical relic. Melvilo informs him that he is not, which surprises Alan. The master turns to him and tells him to do his best and give it his all. Alan makes a face and says he feels like the oldest in this relationship. Meanwhile, the Red One tells Russell that he seems unable to stay still on his first day. He asks if Alan is his friend, and Russell apologizes. Our boy wonders if he really did something wrong later. Lady Dira speaks with Russell and informs him what Olsen told her, that he would like to help track down the cult members. He confirms that he would like to. Master Dira mentions that he spoke well some time ago, because she just received reports from their spies. She informs him that they discovered traces of the cult member who attacked the academy. He was seen somewhere in Sudra, a neutral city, and is trying to escape alone. Russell remembers that Sudra is a so-called paradise for criminals, which must be the reason he chose this location to flee. Master Dara mentions that tracking the criminal will be easier for him since she confronted him before. She says, the only problem is that the criminal will likely be prepared to defend himself again. She asks if he will still take the risk. Russell surprises her by saying that he will fulfill his duty as the guardian of the kingdom. The master seems satisfied with his answer and informs him that he will depart the next morning. She says she will prepare a teleportation portal for him and reminds him not to forget his supplies. Our boy is happy that she has given him permission, and he imagines that he has taken the first step to prevent the death of Professor Hilbert. The next morning, Russell travels to Sudra in a carriage. Inside, he is surprised that they gave him 2 higher-grade potions that he can never use because they are quite expensive. Russell imagines that the master is worried since he is the youngest disciple, even though she allowed this mission. While traveling, he sees a building that catches his attention, so he decides to stop for a moment. It is the Louvre Museum, where his time travel began. He runs to the room where he saw the dragon heart. He tells himself that all this time he has been wondering why such a miracle happened to him. His conclusion is that it was for him to grow more and protect even more people. Suddenly, a screen appears with a mission to obtain the heart of the dragon folk with an unknown reward. Another notification shows him another mission, called Dragonization, where he evokes the power of a dragon at his will, with rewards of 3 intermediate stones. Russell realizes that protecting the heart of the dragon folk means he must make a significant contribution to justify the granting of a commodity belonging to the royal family, which is quite difficult, but not impossible. He checks the other mission and wonders what the hell dragonization is. The system decides to explain it to him. When it notices that he does not understand to explain, the system triggers a strange explosion of mana, and Russell's eyes become like those of a dragon. Vanson recalls that he has felt this sensation before, when he experienced a surge of magic in moments of crisis. He notices his reptilian eyes in the mirror and questions whether it is he who is in the mirror. Later that day, he deduces that this power must have manifested during the fire test and must be the reason he managed to survive it. He wishes to be able to control the sensation at will. He also considers the possibility of increasing his power by adding the overheating technique to dragonization. If he can do that, it could be an extreme lethal strike that could approach being a 6th circle. The only problem is that he does not know how to master it, since the power only manifests on its own. When in danger, Pepper hears him complain that he has no time to train because of the mission, and realizes that it won't be possible to summon dragonification. With the usual training, Pepper has an idea and tries to take him away. He continues to grumble and tells himself that no matter how much he concentrates, he can't feel the same sense of crisis. At ease, Pepper realizes that he isn't moving and gets angry. Suddenly, Russell notices a flow of fire over his face. He quickly gets up and realizes Pepper growling in the dragon tongue. Russell laughs and asks if he can help him. Pepper smiles and growls affirmatively. Later, Russell sits attentively. While Pepper sits on his head, he tries to cross into the mana world, just as Lady Hilo taught him. He soon appears there in his mind, and remembers that he was here with Ilo. The flow of time here is different compared to the normal world, and it could be the perfect place for magic training. The only problem is that he doesn't have a fighting partner suddenly. He looks back when something scares him. A huge dragon appears, and it is clearly Pepper. Bruno is shocked to see his true form, but Pepper just playfully nudges him. He thanks Pepper for helping him, but says he doesn't feel comfortable fighting against him. Russell realizes that Pepper brought some other spiritual beings for him to fight, and laughs relieved for having worried for nothing. One of the spiritual beings looks like a man, and Russell smiles upon seeing him. He snaps his fingers and asks Pepper to do him a favor. Meanwhile, in a pub in Sudra, some of the spies report to their captain that pagans have left the city and ask if they should pursue them. The captain orders everyone to prepare for the chase. The captain asks a man named Jackson to inform the headquarters that the situation has changed. Jackson confirms his orders and tells everyone to be careful. The captain smiles and says he doesn't need to worry. He informs that he heard a deity trained by his own is coming to help. He adds that he cannot let anyone take away his chance to play. Immediately after, he orders the men to follow him as they set out on a mission 3 days later in a hideout in Sudra. Jack realizes they need the deity of the flame tower to get here quickly. He sends a report through a crystal sphere, notifies that the scouts of the flame tower are missing. Later that day, some guys notice something strange on the street. They are surprised to see a boy like Russell in a rough place like Sudra. Sudra is a neutral city, where criminals usually come to escape the law. Russell realizes it would have taken him a while to reach Sudra if it weren't for the teleportation portal in the royal city. Even so, it took him a week to get here with the gate. But thanks to the image training in the spiritual realm, he managed to train well, and it felt like it took months to get here. He remembers his fights in the spiritual realm and how he managed to learn dragonification after that. The system notifies him that he has manifested the power of a dragon, at will, and his dragon horns will manifest according to his current level. He is also informed that during dragonification, his use of flame attributes will increase significantly. Regardless, he realizes that there are still many problems that need to be solved. He remembers fighting the horrendous spirits in the realm, and how his dragonification stopped after a few seconds, allowing the monster to throw him to the ground. The first problem is that the power lasts only 15 seconds. The second problem is the recoil when using it. Just like when using superheating, you become quite defenseless immediately after using it. Meanwhile, while walking, Russell sees a large staff swinging in front of him. A man stops him and asks if he is lost. The man smiles and tells Russell that he can show him the way if he wants, but our boy doesn't respond since it's clear that the guy is trying to rob him. Russell takes the staff from his hand and says that it is a coincidence to have run into him, and all the men surrounding him look confused after being beaten. The guy cheerfully takes Russell to a place called Wyvern Tavern, as promised. The two beaten men bow in respect and say they hope he had a comfortable trip. Russell laughs to himself that these guys are useless idiots, so he tells them to go away. And they say they hope he had a comfortable trip. Russell read for himself, even though those guys are useless idiots, so he tells them to go away. When Russell enters, he sees Jackson working as a bartender. When he sits down, Jackson asks what he would like. Our friend says he would like a cocktail of a red drake mixed with a 12-year-old Briggs. A guy nearby laughs and calls Russell a lunatic for ordering a cocktail with more than 70% alcohol. Russell realizes he could die if he drank something like that. But the order he made is a secret code of the fire tower. Jackson notices and tells himself he can't believe such a young boy is a deity of the fire tower. While serving him a drink, he wonders if he is not too young. Suddenly, Russell is surrounded by a magical shield. Jackson tells him that it is sound isolation magic. The customers cannot hear their conversation. He introduces himself to Russell and informs him that he is a wizard from the Red Tower sent here. He says he works disguised as the manager here at the Yellow Wyvern. Russell also introduces himself and suggests they go somewhere else when they leave. Russell asks about the scouts who disappeared 3 days ago. Jackson confirms that this is true, and the last thing they heard from them was that the scouts were heading towards the ruins in the desert, following the sorcerer who attacked the boys. Russell asks if they fell into a trap, but Jackson says they are not the type of men who act hastily and fall into any trap. Russell asks if he has a map to the way to the desert ruins, and Jackson asks what he needs it for. Our boy says he needs to rescue them, but Jackson says that this place is not where he can go alone. He said that the ruins where the scouts disappeared are near the borders of the Empire, and are quite dangerous. Russell argues that Jackson seems to not trust his abilities, but Jackson suggests he wait for additional reinforcements. Suddenly, Russell activates his mana aura, and this shocks the man. Jackson remembers hearing that he recently reached the 4th circle, but the energy he is emitting is at least 5th level magic. The worst part is how easily he controls it. Jackson winces from the impact of the mana aura, and admits that he seems to have been a bit hasty. He says he will guide him to the ruins. He smiles when he realizes that his approach worked. Meanwhile, elsewhere in Sudra, the sorcerer reports to some high-ranking individuals in the heretical sect and tells them that they left traces. As ordered, the 2 hidden sorcerers praise his good work and say they can already smell the blood of those who would come to investigate. The next morning, Russell heads to the desert ruins while gulping down a bottle of water. He wishes he had known about the heat earlier so he could improve his ice magic. He pours a bit of water on his head because the place is very hot. Eventually, he arrives at a building in the middle of the desert ruins where the men were last seen. Our boy notices that there are many entrances to the building. He reasons that if his mission were just to find the cultists, he would have simply destroyed the ruins and forced them out. But since the scouts might be captured inside, that is not an option, and he would have to enter. Russell deduces that there are probably traps inside the building, so he decides to enter through a different route. If that is the case, he attempts to enter through the most unexpected path to surprise them. He jumps to the top of the building, he descends through the roof, and softens his fall with a bit of wind magic. After landing, he is pleased to realize that there are no traps for him. When he looks ahead, he sees a large depiction of a man fighting alongside a dragon. The man next to the dragon appears to be a warrior with black hair. He looks to the end of the drawing to see the opponent, but realizes that part of the image has been torn away. While he is looking, he hears someone say that it is a surprise. He turns around and spots the sorcerer from before. The sorcerer comments that he cannot believe it is the guy from the academy who is behind him. With him, there is an army of enemies on both sides. The sorcerer says he is glad he came in here alone, so he won't have the trouble of finding him again. The army consists of undead soldiers, as usual. The man says he would grant Russell death as a sign of his gratitude. Russell laughs and asks if he is not exaggerating a bit for a guy who talks so big. The sorcerer gets angry, and his eyes burn intensely. He orders him to die, and the army of undead advances against Russell. The sorcerer considers that these are the corpses of elite soldiers who died on the battlefield, which means they will be much stronger. than those Russell faced before. He smiles and tells himself that this will be the boy's tomb. Russell suddenly responds, and he creates a wall of fire around him, just like last time. The sorcerer is shocked, and asks if he is using the same magic again. Russell just laughs and says that it is not the same, but this time it will be different. Our boy remembers that draconification was not the only thing he practiced during his time in the spirit realm. He trusts his training and begins to expand the magical fire barrier. After that, he decides to add a vector formula to make it mobile, and it transforms into a wave of fire. The army of the undead remains around, unable to cross the fire barrier. Suddenly, the wall burns more intensely, and the fire grows, reaching the outside and engulfing the undead monsters. The fire burns them and even covers the entire room. The sorcerer watches in shock as the wave of fire incinerates his army, and he feels that it shouldn't have been so easy after the fire calms down. Russell walks towards him and says he can see him. The sorcerer is shocked that Russell can see him because he was using an invisibility cloak. He is shocked that Russell managed to use detection magic. Amidst the flames, he curses upon realizing he is in trouble, and it is too late to flee. Russell runs towards him with a maniacal smile on his face, and announces that it is too late to escape. The impact of the attack is so strong that a massive explosion tears through the ruins. The man does not die. He collapses and begins to cough deeply. Blood starts to come out of his mouth, and he wonders if this is all he can do to fight Russell. Walks towards him and tells him to surrender now and save work for both of them. The man says he cannot do that, and Russell wonders what he is talking about. The man staggers to his feet and says that his soul does not belong to him, and as if that were not enough, he sold his family too. The man screams that he gave everything he owns. Suddenly, two people appear above the ruins and jump through the hole while Russell is not looking. The woman named Beth uses a magic called Demon Claw, and the man uses one called Nightmare Tail. They seem to be the people to whom the sorcerer was reporting. Russell quickly turns around and notices the monsters heading in his direction. They both strike an attack at the spot where they are standing, and a bit of dust and smoke covers the entire area. The smoke dissipates, and Beth laughs at the sorcerer, saying, "He looks good." The man says he understands it is just bait, but finds it pathetic that such a young boy hurts him so much. Beth scorns, saying that the appearance of a drying rat suits him perfectly. The frail sorcerer informs them that Russell is the guy they are looking for. He tells them that he is the target, the disciple of the master of the Flame Tower. The two cultists are shocked to hear this, and become angry upon hearing the name Daria. Meanwhile, Russell protects himself from the impact, using a shield. He opens the shield and tells the attackers that filthy people, like them, should keep their master's name out of their mouths. Suddenly, another screen appears, and gives him the mission to capture at least one of the three cultists, or kill them all. The cultists turn to him, and the man tells him that it would have been much better for him a quick death. Beth agrees. While laughing maniacally, she calls Daria a bitch and says there is no way her disciple will die so easily. The woman announces that she will kill him, make a puppet with his body, and then make it dance in front of the flame tower. The male cultist orders the sorcerer, whom he calls Xavier, to quickly block the entrance, and he brings forth his nightmare tails. Beth covers the entrance with the bones of the dead soldiers. She activates her demon claws and says, "This is getting fun." Russell realizes that these guys are using a full frontal attack and are not calling the dead while hiding in the shadows. Unlike the other sorcerers, he concludes that they are nothing like the other opponents he has faced so far. Beth screams and asks if he is not going to attack them, because they will if he doesn't. Russell informs that he would like to ask them a question. He asks what they did to the scouts who came before him. The male cultist asks which scouts he is talking about. Beth becomes impatient and tells him to stop doing petty tricks to buy time. She launches the claws of the demon claw at him, and the fight begins. Russell jumps out of the way and wonders how these guys do not know about the scouts before he can land. The man aims with his whips using the nightmare tail. The whips move very quickly, but Russell manages to dodge them. He wonders if they really do not know, or are pretending. He decides that he will have to find out for himself. Beth gets irritated that he is dodging and calls him a son of a bitch. Suddenly, Russell gets straight to the point and generates his flame spear. He easily deflects the demon claw using the spear, which surprises Xavier. The sorcerer behind them screams that the spear he is holding is the same one that destroyed the giant skeleton. Beth laughs loudly and says, "This is getting interesting." She raises her hands and invokes two large hands using her demon claw technique. The two hands intertwine, and Beth tries to bring them together to create a greater impact. She generates her own spear called Demon Claw Spear and smiles widely. She laughs and tells Russell to guess which one is sharper. Russell says nothing, just stares at her as Beth lunges to attack. The man tells her not to act on her own, but she doesn't listen. She runs towards Russell and says it's too humiliating to be afraid of a boy like him. Meanwhile, Russell prepares to attack her when she charges at him with her spear. He confronts her with his flame spear, both weapons clash and the demon claw shatters. Beth sees this, and her eyes widen in surprise. She looks to the side and sees that her arm is missing. Beth screams at the top of her lungs when she realizes her arm has been cut off. Suddenly, the man extends his whip and cuts off Beth's head. To Russell's shock, he calls her an idiot and says it's her fault since he told her not to act alone. He glares at Russell and calls him a disciple of the Flame Tower. He says he is his enemy but acknowledges his skill. Suddenly, his eyes begin to glow, and he creates a web around himself with whips, releasing a breeze of mana. Russell just watches him, confused, and waits for him to make his move. The man tells Russell that no matter how incredible he is, he cannot block attacks coming from all sides. A large fire suddenly erupts from where Russell is. The guy notices something strange that catches his attention. Russell appears in front of him with a smile on his face, and the guy is shocked when he realizes Russell used Blink. Russell concentrates all his energy into one hand to use Overheat. He attacks the guy's stomach, moving quickly with his wizard body. The guy groans from the impact of the unexpected blow. Xavier witnesses everything and is Canclo, surprised. He sees Russell hovering over the cultist and wonders what is happening when he realizes that it is now a dead man. He crumbles at the sight of them losing again. He tells himself that he won't have a simple death, cursing the cultist for boasting earlier, as if they were something important next to Beth. He sees a red object on the ground. He recognizes it as an artifact and has an idea. Meanwhile, the cultist trembles after taking a beating. The injured guy tells Russell to stop playing and kill him, but Russell tells him to shut up. He grabs the guy's head and points a blast of fire at him, demanding that he answer his question. He asks what happened to the scouts. The guy spits at Russell and asks why he keeps asking about scouts. The cultist asks what the hell he is talking about. Russell is shocked to realize that it seems the guy doesn't know. The guy sees an opportunity to attack Russell and considers that he is off guard. He grabs his dagger and tries to take advantage of the chance before he can reach it. A long whip extends across the room and grabs the guy by the throat. Russell is shocked and looks to the side to see what is happening. He sees Xavier performing another sacrificial spell with the artifact, transforming into a monster. Our boy is shocked to have to face another sacrificial spell again. The cultist sees Xavier and wonders if what he is holding is the heart of the infernal giant. He is soon dragged across the room by the whip that came from Xavier. Meanwhile, Xavier continues dedicating the life and death of himself and others to complete the spell as the cultist is dragged towards the giant infernal monster that is forming. He tells himself that he cannot let himself merge with this guy's monster. It's too late as he is dragged into the monster and impaled all over his body. Xavier calls the creature he refers to as the Abomination and asks it to descend when the sacrifice is completed. Suddenly, the giant mass transforms into the creature referred to as the Abomination. The mana released by the creature is so strong that Russell begins to wonder what is wrong. A system notification appears, stating that the mission has been altered. It says that all cultists are dead and he must destroy the Abomination. The Abomination looks at Russell with red, malevolent eyes. Xavier, now transformed into the beast, looks at himself and growls. He asks Russell how he dares to make him transform into such a mess. The monster uses a magical spell called Demon Claw Sting and tells Russell that he will ensure he is torn apart. Russell is shocked to see the Abomination, realizing it is using Beth's magic. The Abomination launches some demon claws at him, and he looks at them in horror. The explosion from the impact is so great that it brings down the entire building. Fortunately, Russell creates a wall of fire around him to protect himself from the imploding stones. He calls Xavier a bastard, realizing he barely escaped. The Abomination launches some demonic claws at him, and he looks at them in horror. The explosion from the impact is so great that it brings down the entire building. Fortunately, Russell creates a wall of fire around him to protect himself from the imploding stones. He calls Xavier a bastard, realizing he barely escaped. The monster seems to have caused the entire building to collapse on its head, so Russell calls it an idiot. He reasons that Xavier couldn't handle the power of such a monster and dug his own grave. Suddenly, the debris begins to tremble, and it seems that the monster is still alive. Russell notices the shaking and exclaims as the Abomination jumps off the ground again, seemingly determined to destroy Russell. It releases its triple chains and smashes them down at the spot where Russell is. Telling him to die, the Abomination threatens to devour him until nothing remains but bones. Suddenly, the monster is hit by an explosion of fire. From behind, Russell, who had launched the fire spear at it, watches to see if he hit. The monster is enveloped in smoke, and everything becomes obscured. Finally, the monster, unharmed, turns around and spits at him, declaring that his attacks won't work on it. Russell grimaces and realizes that the monster is right, because it has incredible defense. He realizes he needs to think of a way to escape, but the monster quickly attacks him with its spiked chains, telling him to think as much as he wants and smashing the chains down at his location. Russell quickly disappears from the spot and tells himself he needs to find a way to buy time. The monster mocks him and insists he should flee in despair before its overwhelming power. Russell scoffs and says as if he would ever run away from such an idiot. He tells himself that this is just the beginning and quickly summons Pepper. When Pepper appears, he asks if he can lend a hand, and Pepper eagerly agrees. As usual, our boy creates a bit of fire in his hand and decides to start. He quickly raises a wall of fire between himself and the monster. After that, he transforms it into a wave of fire and directs it towards the abomination. The giant wave hits the monster, but it manages to block it. Although it causes some damage, the abomination calls Russell a fool and asks if he really thinks such a spell could harm it. When the monster looks up, it sees no one in front of it and wonders where Russell has gone. Russell, who had hidden, smiles and tells Pepper to act now while the abomination is still looking around. Pepper runs towards it, and the dragon unleashes a blast of fire at the unsuspecting monster. Pepper quickly runs in circles around the monster and shoots fire at it while trying to capture it. Meanwhile, Russell flies above to deliver his final attack. Our boy is happy to have managed to keep the monster's attention away from him because now he can execute his attack. He begins to generate the flame spear but combines it with superheating because it is the only magic he knows that has overwhelming penetrating power. When Pepper realizes that Russell has finished creating the weapon, he gets out of the way while the monster tells Russell to stop playing and show himself. Russell, who is jumping towards the monster's head with the peculiar blaze lens, says he will fulfill the request shortly. Our boy strikes the monster's head with the blaze lens with great power. The head and body of the monster fill with fire, but it informs Russell that everything he is doing is useless. Russell says he knows and laughs because it still hasn't seen his true trump card. Suddenly, our boy invokes a lightning bolt. He creates a large sphere of lightning above the monster's head to attack it. Suddenly, he summons the lightning to strike the top of the monster's head. The magic is something called the Giant Thunder Hammer. The brilliant lightning pierces through the entire system of the monster. The impact is so strong that the abomination explodes on the spot. A large cloud of smoke covers the area, and it is hard to see anything. Finally, Russell lands on his feet and wonders if he has finally destroyed the monster. He looks closer and sees that the highest part of the monster exploded, revealing Xavier's skeleton. The system shows a notification and informs him that the mission is over, and he will now receive his rewards. Russell feels relieved to see that the mission has ended and falls backward. Pepper appears on his shoulder, and Russell praises him for doing a good job. Suddenly, the skull slips from the skeleton and falls to the ground. It bounces from where it fell and stops in front of Russell, startling the skeleton. It calls out his name and mentions that Daria trained an incredible boy in her last years. The skull asks who would have known that her prodigy would be a Raymond, and Russell is shocked that the skeleton is speaking. The skeleton continues and wonders if the son will be more interesting than the father. Our boy remains shocked as he listens to the skull. Raymond and Russell are shocked that the skeleton is speaking. The skeleton continues and wonders if the son will be more interesting than the father. Our boy remains shocked as he listens to the skull. Russell becomes irritated and grabs the skull, demanding to know who is speaking, as it seems another person is talking through the skull. The skull laughs and says he will find out sooner or later. It also mentions that he will discover how his father looked in his last years suddenly. It explodes in Russell's hands. The voice laughs and says that his father had quite a fierce look. Our boy starts to cry in the rain due to the frustration of knowing that the enemies know his father. In the rain, he demands that the voice tell him who the hell it is and starts cursing. Pepper comes to his side to comfort him. The remnant of the abomination's body remains motionless in front of him. Meanwhile, someone is observing Russell with a telescope and informs his colleagues that their battle has ended. The man orders his subordinates to send a report to the base. We shift to the 12th Desert between the 2nd Battalion of the Imperial Army inside the base. The commander of the battalion, Viscount Montemarte, reads the report from the men. He discovers that the confrontation between the man assumed to be a wizard of Endymion and a cultist resulted in the wizard's victory. The report also states that judging by the magical strength, the wizard's level is estimated to be above the 5th circle. The information surprises him, and he calls the intelligence officer. Commander Viscount demands to know how it is possible that he did not notice that a wizard of this caliber got so close to his territory. The intelligence officer apologizes and says that there were no reports of unusual movements from high-ranking wizards of Endymion. Another officer sitting nearby says it is possible that the person is a new wizard. He adds that there is a rumor that the Blazing Tower has a new, younger member. The intelligence officer tries to defend himself, saying that the wizard must have just graduated from the academy, so there is no reason to worry as long as they do not approach the borders. The commander calls him an idiot and says that this recent graduate is estimated to be above the 5th circle. He comments that this means he could be a greater force for Endymion in the future. Both men fall silent, and the commander just sighs. The commander curses and says he does not want to have to deal with this. He says he has no choice but to call that maniac to handle the threat, referring to an unknown person. Meanwhile, under the hot sun of the desert, Russell sits on a sand dune and drinks a little water. He is deep in thought and continues to ponder something. He wonders if the cult really killed his father. Russell tells himself that he needs to focus on the mission of finding the scouts now, especially now that he has people following him. He cannot afford to lose focus. He looks to the side and deduces that the people must be scouts sent by the Empire. He realizes that they have not attacked him, so he assumes their goal is merely surveillance. Suddenly, he sees a strange figure far away on the desert floor. When he looks closer, the person starts to shine intensely. Russell runs towards the person with his wizard body to catch them, but as he approaches, the person completely disappears. He mysteriously sustains a cut on his cheek and falls to the ground. Russell gets up and wonders if everything he saw is a magical hour. A system notification appears and tells him that he has encountered one enemy of a level he has never faced before. His mission is to escape the enemy's grasp without being injured, with rewards of 5 intermediate-grade monastones. Russell is shocked and looks at his attacker to find out who he is. The guy appears to be a swordsman, and he recognizes him as someone named Spandon. Spandon just smiles at him and says he definitely aimed for his neck. The guy says it seems that the report about a master above the 5th circle was true. Russell furrows his brow at him and recognizes him as the superhuman of the Empire. He is the disciple of the great master swordsman McCrae. Spandon smiles like a maniac and tells Russell that it will be fun to cut him. Russell says that in the end, the best way to describe Spandon is Spandon the homicidal maniac. The swordsman is surprised that Russell knows his name. He extends his sword in his direction and says it is a relief. Russell does not move and just furrows his brow at him. Spandon says that since he knows his name, he will be able to accept the time of absolute pain he must endure. Our boy thinks about why Spandon is called Spandon, the homicidal maniac. Spandon's sword begins to shine with a crimson aura, and Russell remembers having seen it only because he bumped into him in a past life. He brutally massacred the entire group of mercenaries and killed them. Russell also almost died if it weren't for Alan's intervention. Spanning says that since he knows his name, he will be able to endure the absolute pain he must bear. Our boy thinks about why Spanning is called Spanning. The maniacal murderer, Spanning's sword begins to glow with a crimson aura, and Russell remembers having seen it just because it brushed against him in a past life. He brutally massacred the entire group of mercenaries and killed Russell as well. He almost died if it weren't for Alan's intervention. They would have been annihilated in the flashback. Alan jumps to the scene just as Spider-Man is about to kill Russell. Spider-Man is not scared, and just smiles like the maniac. He is the knight, and the wizard face off in a fierce battle. Even back then, the lampade, that had surpassed the barrier of a wizard, barely managed to subjugate him and was injured. Russell tells himself that Spider-Man is an enemy of unprecedented power. Spider-Man grows tired of waiting and says it's time to start. The knight uses a blade attack called Flying Blood. Russell quickly creates a shield to block it and forms 5 layers. The attack hits the shield and completely shatters it. Russell is shocked that an attack can break through 5 layers of shield. He has no choice but to jump back to avoid the line of attack. The flying blood hits the spot where he was and creates an explosion in the sand. Our boy wonders how Spider-Man's attack has so much power. Even after piercing through 5 layers of shield, he questions how the lampade was able to deal with someone like him. Spider-Man seems surprised that he managed to avoid the attack and notes that he overlaid the shield. He comments that Russell's judgment is good, but the density of his magical power is very low. He launches another whirlwind of blood attacks. Russell hears what he said and realizes that this is the solution. While the flying blood charge, he comes towards him. He, Russell, generates his fire spear. Since it possesses a lot of power, he uses the fire spear to cut the incoming attack and dissipates it. Pan is not shocked by his response and wonders what is happening. He notices the fire spear and tells Russell that it seems he was hiding something quite useful. Russell sarcastically asks if that's really the case, and he throws the flaming spear at him. Spider-Man does not notice the spear coming towards him, but does not move away. Instead, he is surprised that the flaming spear remained intact. Even after Russell threw it, he quickly generates a flying blood wave to protect himself from the flying spear. The knight smiles and says that he really finds battles with wizards quite interesting. Suddenly, Russell uses teleportation and appears behind him with the flaming spear in hand to attack him. He quickly throws the spear at Spider-Man's back to attack him from behind. Suddenly, Spider-Man disappears, and it seems that he also knows teleportation magic. He appears behind Russell, and comments that Russell can also use the blink of an eye like the rat he is. Russell is shocked to see Spider-Man behind him. When he turns around, the knight strikes Russell with his sword, and the bloodshed. Spider-Man laughs, and says that he hasn't had this much fun in a long time. Before his sword hits him, Russell manages to teleport a few meters away. Our boy suffers a cut on his leg, and Spider-Man asks, mockingly, if he is bleeding. Spider-Man continues laughing and says he will wait for him to heal. Russell tries to use some magic to heal the wound and realizes that Spider-Man is using the aura around his body to increase his speed. That's why it seemed like he had teleported. He deduces that Spider-Man's aura is not comparable to a wizard's body. Meanwhile, he tries to cut his clothes to stop the bleeding. Spider-Man continues observing and asks if all the people from the Tower of the Flame are this stubborn, or if they need to be this way. To enter the organization, Russell wonders why he asked the question, and questions him about what he means. Spider-Man does not smile, and says that the ones he met a few days ago did not give up until the end. Referring to the scouts, he said they came to look for one of their scouts who was missing. Spider-Man realizes that he is the one who killed the scouts and is horrified. He asks Spider-Man again if he was the one who killed the missing scouts. Spider-Man just smiles and shrugs. Russell gets angry and clenches his fist. He remembers that he planned to escape after a brief confrontation, as the system told him so he could go find the scouts. Instead, he activates and releases a large amount of mana, appearing ready to fight. He reasons angrily that this is not the time to think about the future. Spider-Man smiles and exclaims that Russell has been hiding his true power while fighting him. The knight holds his sword and says they will see if he can stay relaxed while his whole body is in pain. From being shredded, Russell looks at his turbo ring and realizes that it hasn't recharged yet, which means it's just an exit in the end. Expondo raises his sword to deliver another strike. He uses something called Blood Torrent, causing a torrent of blood. Russell sees the torrent advancing towards him. He decides to use his last option. He activates his Draconification. Russell's entire body is suddenly engulfed in flames as he unleashes fire to burn the blood torrent, hoping to shock the boy into crossing the attack. Meanwhile, the Russian is not submerged in the pool of fire he is in. Suddenly, he jumps after activating his Draconification. He begins the countdown and realizes he has only 14 seconds before the power runs out. Quickly creating his flaming spear, he rushes towards Spandam. Spandam smiles as he observes him and reasons that this could be quite dangerous. Even so, he does not move out of the way as Russell advances towards him with the flaming spear in hand. Russell unleashes a destructive fire blast at the spot where Spandam is standing. Shortly after, the flames dissipate, and Russell is in the blazing furnace. He looks around searching for Spandam, but the knight appears behind him. Spandam speaks from behind, shocking him. He says he doesn't know what trick Russell used. He attacks Russell with his sword, but our boy dodges the attack with his hand. Spandam says he is sure he just temporarily increased his powers. Russell continues counting down, and realizes he has 9 seconds left. Spandam proceeds to attack again, slicing Russell's face with his sword, but our boy quickly retaliates with a strike from his spear. The effect of the attack results in a massive explosion. Spandam jumps out of the way to avoid the blast. Russell counts that he has 6 seconds remaining. Spandam scoffs, saying that if increasing his power isn't enough to kill him, then it's a useless power. The knight jumps up, saying it's time to end this. He uses an ability called Cyclone Typhoon, and unleashes a whirlwind of blood blades. Russell looks up at him and furrows his brow. The knight descends towards our boy with the intent to pierce him with the attack, but Russell blocks with a spear to counter the attack. Spandam's sword clashes with Russell's spear, but Spandam quickly uses a wave of blood to deflect the spear and redirect the attack. Russell's spear strikes the ground, and he accidentally fires it into the ground. The resulting explosion is massive and engulfs the entire battlefield. After the fire dissipates, Russell falls to his knees, gasping and looking exhausted. Meanwhile, Spandam stands in front of him. Spandam observes Russell on his knees as the fire dissipates. Russell continues counting and realizes he has 2 seconds left. Spandam laughs and asks if he has finally finished. Russell tells him he still has one more thing. He says he has 1 second left and places his hands on the ground for his final attack. The attack he uses is 6th Circle Magic. This shocks Spandam. The ground beneath them begins to crack, and fire starts to rise. The crack widens. Spandam appears genuinely shocked as the fire transforms into magma, making it seem like they are both inside a volcano. Russell transforms the entire area into a volcanic zone using an ability called Melting. In a flashback to when Russell was studying in the professor's library, He remembers reading about the melting method. He recalls that he managed to understand the principle behind it, but since it required sixth circle magic, he couldn't use it. The ability works by starting with small embers and then covering the entire area with magma. In the present, Pepper comes to Russell's rescue and lifts him out of the magma. In the sky, Russell thanks Pepper for the help. Meanwhile, Pepper struggles to keep him in the air due to the weight difference on top of a rock. Russell looks down to see what happened to Spandam. Suddenly, someone appears behind him. Russell quickly turns to see who it is. It turns out to be Spandam, who is coughing profusely and appears severely injured. With one arm severed, Russell approaches him and aims a fire beam at his head. He asks Spandam if he has any last words, but Spandam does not respond and continues trembling. Spandam finally smiles and asks him if he finds their situation amusing. Spandam talks about the Guardians and says they lead them to war in the name of protecting their country, but they do not let them know how to escape it. He mentions that you have to kill repeatedly, and adds that the path of a Guardian is indeed a bloody road. Spandam tells Russell that he welcomes him with open arms. Russell hesitates, and Spandam continues waiting. Seconds later, Russell executes Spandam on the spot. He stands in front of the body and only thinks in silence. The system soon presents a notification that he has completed the mission and exceeded the requirements, so he is rewarded with 8 intermediate-grade mana stones, covering the entire area with magma. Currently, Pepper comes to Russell's rescue and pulls him out of the magma. In the sky, Russell thanks Pepper for the help. Meanwhile, Pepper struggles to keep him in the air due to the weight difference from the top of a rock. Russell looks down to see what happened with the expanding. Suddenly, someone appears behind him. Russell quickly turns to see who it is. It turns out to be Spider-Man, who is coughing profusely and looks severely injured. With one arm cut off, Russell approaches him and aims his head with a firebolt. He asks Spain if he has any last words, but Spain does not respond and continues trembling. Spain finally smiles and asks him if he finds their situation funny. Spain talks about the Guardians and says they lead them to war in the name of protecting their country, but they don't let them know how to get out of it. He mentions that you have to kill repeatedly. He adds that the path of a Guardian is indeed a bloody road. Spider-Man tells Russell that he welcomes him with open arms. Russell hesitates, and Spider-Man continues waiting. Seconds later, Russell executes Spider-Man on the spot. He stands in front of the body and just thinks in silence. The system soon presents a notification that he has completed the mission and exceeded the requirements, so he is rewarded with 8 intermediate-grade mana stones. Meanwhile, in the tavern, another scout comes to bring information to Jackson and tells him that they are discussing that Spandam, a knight of the Empire, is secretly operating in the desert. The man tells Jackson that the disappearance of the scouts may also be linked to him. Jackson is shocked and reasons that if this is true, then the deity of the Flame Tower is also in danger. He thinks that no matter how skilled he is, he won't be able to face Spandam. While they are talking, Russell enters the tavern. He walks up to the counter and places a broken sword on the table. Jackson is shocked and recognizes the sword as belonging to Pandum. Jackson just stares at him and doesn't know what to say. Russell smiles at him and says he would just like a glass of water. Jackson quickly gets water for him and says he can ask for anything he wants. That night, Jackson goes to the orb and records his report. He sends his report about the scouts of the Fire Tower and also informs that Russell Raymond killed the pagans. Soon after, the news spread and reached Camelot, the capital of Endymion. Everyone heard about Russell Raymond, the last heir of the fallen house of Raymond. They heard the rumor that he defeated the Abomination, the magical beast of the pagans, and that he even defeated Spandam, a knight of the Empire. Despite being a newcomer at the Flame Tower, the rumor was hard to believe and was received with mixed feelings. Shortly after, Russell returned to the tower through the portal. When he appears, the Master seems excited to see him, but Brother Olsen and Hilbert look intrigued. Some, like the Area Master, feel relief. She ruffles his hair and thanks him for coming back alive. Some became competitive. Master Melville reads the report and laughs, saying, "It seems this will be a tough bet." Alan also reads and comments that it seems this rookie is much more incredible than he thought. Some felt hatred and fury. Elsewhere in the world, some people inform Master Spandam McRae that he is dead. McRae cleans his sword and asks the men if this is all the information they have for him. McRae is the master of the Sword of the Empire, and the anger is evident in his eyes. The men shrink back before him and say this is all the information they have. Russell reasons that although everyone felt different emotions, they all had one thing in common. Meanwhile, McRae declares that it will be eye for an eye, disciple for disciple. He slams his sword into the ground with deep rage. A dark force erupts from the ground, where he strikes and advances. The The force travels from where he is to the forest and destroys the entire place. The only thing that everyone who heard the message had in common was that they all had a strong impression of Russell Raymond. McRae remembers to give Stone White and says they will take revenge at all costs. Later, Russell gives Master Daria a report of his mission. She asks if what he is saying is that the pagans were involved in the death of his father. Russell reaffirms what he said. She informs him that many records were lost during the war, and it is difficult to uncover the true situation. She says it will be harder to identify the culprit. Russell tells her he is aware of that. To comfort him, the Master holds his hands and tells him that one thing is certain. She says that if they continue pursuing the pagans, they will be able to reach the truth, and asks if he thinks so too. The Master assures him that she, along with the Flame Tower, will always be there to help him, and Russell thanks her sincerely. Soon after, the coachman announces that they have arrived at their destination. Master Daria tells him she hopes he can set aside his doubts and anxieties so he can expand the horizon of his knowledge. Today, they get off and enter a large building. Inside the building, there is a meeting of the Magic Tower Council. The Magic Tower Council is a magical society that brings together the masters of more than 20 magical towers that exist in Endymion. Russell says that 2 months ago, thanks to him defeating Spandon, he received access to participate in this council as the Master's assistant, despite being a newcomer in the tower. When they enter, one of the Masters recognizes Russell as the deity they have heard about, and another man says it is an honor to meet him. Russell laughs and thanks them for their kindness. While they are greeting each other, someone approaches Master Daria and says it has been a long time, referring to her as a veteran. Daria turns to see who it is and recognizes the man as the Master of the Yellow Tower, repeating that it really has been a long time. When he approaches them, Miss Daria introduces the Master of the Yellow Tower as Niccolò Machiavelli. She informs Russell. As he approaches them, Miss Daria introduces the Master of the Yellow Tower as Niccolò Machiavelli. She informs Russell that he is the organizer of the Magic Tower Council today. Russell quickly bows and greets the Master. The man laughs and says he doesn't need to be so formal. He comments that he took down the disciple of that damn scoundrel. Russell looks up and wonders which scoundrel they are talking about. Miss Daria informs him that he is talking about McRae Hills, the master swordsman of the Empire. She informs him that the man he took down was her disciple. Niccolò points to the cut on his eye and says it was invigorating. Hearing the news, Russell notices the cut on the eye and realizes it must have been the work of McRae. Master Daria intervenes and asks him to stop mentioning old wounds and go prepare for the presentation. She reminds him that he said he had an important agenda today. Moments later, Master Melvillo and Alampade approach them. Master Melvillo greets the Master of the Flame Tower and the Master of the Yellow Tower, Russell. He looks to the side and spots the Master of the Spear Tower. Miss Daria smiles and tells Melvillo that he seems to be jealous because his disciple is being praised. Melvillo laughs and asks if she thinks he is as petty as she is. Niccolò feels the tension rising and quickly excuses himself to go prepare for his presentation. Niccolò leaves quickly because he knows they are starting again. Master Melvillo mentions that since they are on the subject, he hopes she hasn't forgotten the bet about the relic from the Age of Gods. But Miss Daria retorts that she cannot forget. Master Melvillo begins to boast and says that his dear Alan has already done something. Before he can finish the sentence, Alan places his hands on his master's shoulders and reminds him that they need to go to their seats. Alan starts to pull him, and Master Melvillo calls him a little rascal and says he was still talking. He shouts for Alan to let him go. Russell begins to laugh at the demonstration of the Master and his disciple. Soon after, the presentation begins, and Master Niccolò announces that they are starting this session of the Magic Tower Council. He announces that the main agenda of this meeting is about the ruins being excavated on Mount Calvau. He says that the ruins seem to date back to the end of the mythological era, and that no evidence of looting has been found. This means there is still a good chance of a relic being intact. Then he smiles broadly. Russell thinks about the idea of a relic from the mythological era, and Master Daria comments that they might unearth an artifact that will shake the times. Niccolò announces to the Masters that this is why they need their help to protect the site. Master Niccolò calls Sam Alampade from the Spear Tower to assist. He also mentions Russell from the Flame Tower and says he would like to ask a favor from both. People start to whisper and say it is a good idea, since Russell has already proven his abilities. Miss Daria boasts and says to herself that they will surely have to choose Russell, and wonders whose disciple they think he is. Suddenly, one of the Masters opposes the motion. Master Daria quickly turns to see who opposed. It turns out to be a man named Blaine Trilogy, the Master of the Red Tower, who came to the meeting with a boy named Dyrone. a mage from the Red Tower. Master Blaine walks to the center, and Nicolo is surprised to see him. Master Nicolo asks him to explain why he opposes, if he doesn't mind. Master Blaine mentions the name Alex Raymond, Russell's father. He turns to look at Russell, who is shocked to hear his father's name. Blaine says he opposes because of Alex Raymond's defeat. Some people ask how the son can be blamed for the father's defeat, and another man says that the war with the Empire was a long time ago. Blaine insists that although they are correct, the defeat cost the lives of the kingdom's best elite soldiers. After he left the fight without permission, the entire room falls silent, and no one speaks. Miss Daraya intervenes and says that this is pure speculation because there are no records from that time. Blaine tells her that she is wrong because he was there. Russell and Master Daraya are shocked to hear this. Blaine says he saw him flee with his own eyes. Russell listens in shock and looks horrified to learn that his father fled during the war. Russell remembers that it is no secret that his father died during the war, but he wonders why this man is talking so much nonsense. Blaine declares to the masters that the Raymond family has a debt to the kingdom that must be paid. He adds that they need to consider how the young people of the kingdom would feel deceived if they entrusted such an important mission to the Raymond family. Master Blaine says that the Red Tower will not support the expedition if Russell is in charge of the guard. Some of the men consider their options because Russell is known as the ascendant deity, but it is difficult to leave the Red Tower out of this. Nicolo observes the situation and realizes that Blaine has influenced the crowd with just a few words. He deduces that this was expected from the Red Tower. Blaine should have expected this because of the support he has from Master Nicole, who thinks of a high-ranking man in society, the Archduke Bismarck. He remembers that Blaine is trusted by the king's uncle and the most powerful man in the country, the Archduke. Nicole concludes that if he revolts against him, it means animosity towards the Archduke's faction. He recognizes that the only people who do not take care when interacting with him are Master Melville and the Master of Raya. Meanwhile, Master Melville listens to Blaine's explanation and says that this is simply ridiculous. He feels Russell's anger and tells him not to get involved, because she will take care of it. Suddenly, Russell informs the Master of the Red Tower that he would like to ask him something against Daraya's instruction. Blaine turns around, and Russell asks if he can take responsibility for what he just said. Master Blaine asks what he means by responsibility, and Russell asks if he can take responsibility for insulting the House of Raymond. Master Daraya tells Russell that this is not the time, while Blaine laughs disdainfully and comments that the honor of a fallen family is insignificant and means nothing. He tells Russell to be grateful that Daraya is his master. He said that if she weren't, he would have ripped out his tongue and made him an example for all the other arrogant and insolent wizards. Suddenly, someone enters and mentions the Master of the Red Tower. He acts more and more like a member of royalty every time she sees him. She comments that someone could mistake him for His Majesty, the king himself. Everyone turns shocked to see who enters. The intruder is Ekate Ratmos, the princess of the kingdom. The masters promptly bow to greet the princess. Blaine also bows to save her but wonders why the princess is here. Princess Recat says she was listening outside and thinks that the Master of the Red Tower is right. She says that if someone owes a debt, they must pay it. Miss Daraya tries to intervene, but the princess says there is a but. Princess Ikate says that for the person to pay, they must be given the chance to do so. Finally, she announces to them that she is ordering the Lance Tower and the Flame Tower to act as guards along with the Red Tower. Blaine hears her verdict and is surprised. Princess Regate just smiles at him. Blaine reacts and reminds Her Highness that this is not a matter to be treated so lightly. Princess Rex calls Nicole and asks who the biggest sponsor of the excavation is. Master Nicole mentions that she is the great sponsor. The princess smiles and says they will proceed as she said. After making her statement, she leaves the room. Blaine looks at her and smiles uncomfortably. Nicole quickly silences everyone and announces that the next item on the agenda is the excavation schedule. Russell seems perplexed by everything that just happened and thinks about Princess Recat. After the meeting, Blaine reasons that this was his chance to end the Raymond family, but he cannot believe that the princess interfered. Suddenly, Geron notices something on their carriage's trail and jumps onto the roof, brandishing a crimson sword. The coachman stops abruptly when someone blocks the way. Master Blaine gets down and tells Daraya that he can see she still has no manners. Daraya simply smiles and says that he is not the only one lacking manners. Suddenly, Geron points his sword at Daraya's neck. She smiles at him and asks if he thinks his sword is enough. Geron just looks at her, not understanding what she means. Master Blaine steps forward and tells Geron to put away his weapon. Geron is surprised by the master's change of tone, so he bows and leaves. Blaine tells Daraya that by knowing her, he knows she is not here to apologize, so he asks what she wants. Maria says she wants to talk about Alex Raymond, and Blaine looks surprised. She asks him if he also witnessed Alex's death, and he informs her that he did not see it. Miss Daraya says it is a shame because she is trying to get to the bottom of his death, and thought about asking him for precaution. Blaine comments that he does not believe she would go that far, and asks if she knew the late Raymond. Daraya retorts angrily that it is a matter concerning her youngest disciple, and a disciple's affairs are their master's affairs. She adds that she is just trying to help her disciple settle the accounts, and that she will find out who was responsible for his death. She immediately strikes her staff on the ground and disappears, leaving the men surprised. Master Blaine orders the coachman to turn the carriage and head to the Archduke's mansion. He said there is something there he needs to check. Meanwhile, at the Archduke's mansion, a skull is placed in a dark room with a heretical inscription on its forehead. Suddenly, the skeleton comes to life, and its eyes shine intensely. Sometime later, Messi Daraya asks Russell if he is still leaving tomorrow. She asks how he will be able to perform well on the mission. When he is so distracted during training, she asks if what that old man said is still bothering Russell. He continues his fight against the monsters, and tells her that he is not. Master Daraya looks closely at him, and remembers that people had praised him as a deity, and now suddenly they are slandering his deceased father as a coward. She wonders if there is a way for him not to be shaken by this. Master Daraya goes down to talk to him. She tells him that the truth will eventually come to light, and that she wishes he would just focus on following his path. Russell thinks about what she said regarding following his path. Finally, he asks Master Daraya to guide him once more. The master laughs and seems pleased with his declaration. Russell realizes that it will not be an easy path, but it is a path that must be walked. He tells himself that children must step out of their parents' shadows. Meanwhile, Princess Rekate goes out in public and hides her identity. Looking at the palace, she thinks about how great her parents' shadow is. She steps away from the house and continues to explore the city. 3 days later, on Mount Calvan, a portal opens from the Tower of Flames. Russell crosses the portal and steps onto the mountain. He looks around at the mountain landscape he has heard about. Suddenly, he realizes how cold it is and starts to shiver. He moves his finger and releases a bit of energy to warm the atmosphere. The people around are surprised to see that the air suddenly warmed up. Meanwhile, one of the people working at the excavation center resembles the princess. A guy asks Russell if he is Russell Raymond from the Tower of Flames, and he confirms that he is the man. The man tells him that they have been waiting, then shows him the way. As Russell follows, he sees several flags. He sees the yellow flag of the Royal Path Tower, another from the Yellow Tower of Everall, and another from the Yellow Tower of Echius. He realizes that all the Earth-type magic specialists have gathered here for the work. The man asks Russell, and he thinks the scale of the work is impressive. The man tells him that they even made the entire building out of magical crystals. Russell notes how reflective the building is and says they are like mirrors. The man confirms his statement and says that is why they call the ruins the Temple of Mirrors. Shortly after, they meet an old man who welcomes Russell. He introduces himself as Spiga, the Yellow Tower's envoy, the man responsible for the expedition. Russell respectfully greets him and introduces himself. Russell recognizes the man as a skilled individual who rose from his status as a commoner to the elder of the Yellow Tower of the Royal Path. He is also the archaeologist and adventurer who has unearthed more ruins than anyone else in the kingdom. Russell wonders if he can ask a few questions that are on his mind. Suddenly, Alan arrives, and he recognizes Russell's presence. Our boy gets excited to see him and comments that he came so early. They shake hands, and Russell says it is a pleasure to meet him. Russell jokingly calls Alan a diligent genius and says that it is cheating, but Alan laughs and says he wants to protect the mythological relic. Alan says they will have to wait for the Guardian of the Red Tower to arrive so they can discuss their shift and missions together. Mr. Spiegelman argues that it is definitely comforting to have the deities of the kingdom guarding the excavation site. Alan arrives, and he recognizes Russell's presence. Our boy is excited to see him and comments that he came so early. They shake hands, and Russell says it is a pleasure to meet him. Russell jokes, calling Alan a diligent genius, and says that this is cheating, but Alan laughs and says he wants to protect the mythological relic. Alan said they will have to wait for the Guardian of the Red Tower to arrive so they can discuss their shift and missions together. Mr. Spiegelman argues that it is definitely comforting to have the deities of the realm guarding the excavation site.